Okay, we are recording, and Duncan, this is recording to the cloud, so you'll be able to access it right away.
Okay.
So with that, I appreciate everyone that's joined us tonight. We're going to talk about the small business startup planning with the Lean Canvas, and we're going to start with introductions before we jump into it. Duncan?
Thank you, Dean. My name is Duncan Malloy, and I'm a representative of Startup 425, which is an alliance of 5 East Side cities. Those cities are Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, Renton, and Issaquah. And those cities came together a couple years back and said there's an adequate amount of business training and education going on the East Side, but there's probably room for even more. So that's our principal focus, is to provide kind of business basics, business 101 type of information in conjunction with SCORE, who is essentially our faculty for the whole series. And Dean is not only one of our STAR faculty members, but he's also a big part of the administration of Startup 425. So he's our linkage into SCORE, and Juan, I'm happy to hear that you've just become affiliated with SCORE. It's a wonderful organization, and Dean will tell you a little bit more about that as the evening progresses. But I just want to thank you all for coming. We're expecting several more, and I will ask a favor. At the end of this session, I'm going to send everybody who registered an email, and it will have a link to a real quick survey to provide feedback on this webinar. So if you would do us a favor and take just a couple of moments, either this evening or in the next day or two, to look out for that questionnaire and to take it, that helps us keep these things going. We're asked regularly by our overseers for all manner of data on participation and take rate and satisfaction and on and on and on. So this is just our way of helping to feed the beast. So thank you in advance, and I'll give it back to Dean, who's going to take us through a fun evening of learning.
Great, well, I appreciate that. And I'm going to stop my video because Comcast is telling me I've got an unstable connection. And we'll start the presentation. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. You should see hello and introductions.
Yep, that's what we see.
Perfect. Let me... Okay, so with that, Duncan's already went through the introductions of Startup 425. King County Library System is another big part of this. Typically what we do is we hold these in the actual library themselves. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we're not allowed to do that at this point. But my name is Dean Van Dyke, and I am with SCORE. And I've been with SCORE now, I think, going on 3 years. I've been engaged with Startup 425 for almost just as long. And so this year we do have not just 4, but we actually have 6 sessions. We've got 2 follow-on sessions, which one is going to be related to risk management, cybersecurity, as well as insurance. And then the other one is going to be Duncan,
running a business remotely.
Thank you. I apologize for that. It's been a day so far, but from a Startup 425 perspective, we've been partnering with them, Eastside SCORE, Greater Seattle, for many years, and we actually do also offer additional workshops with my compatriot Chuck Botsford as well through our paid workshops that we held last May and June online, Duncan?
It was, yeah, it was May, June. Yep, Small Business Essentials. Yep.
And so from a SCORE perspective, there's over 300 chapters nationwide, 10,000 volunteers. And to date, this number's went up 11 million entrepreneurs, since we started. SCORE is an acronym that stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives. I am not retired. I consider myself to be refired, not fired, but refired. And I've been doing this. I love helping businesses. I love helping municipalities to work with their small businesses. And what we do is we meet one-on-one. We've got many different specialties, and we advise, educate, and encourage business leaders really to help develop them as people and be successful in their business. And if this is all free to those that seek mentorship, we are sponsored by the SBA, Small Business Administration, and there is a wealth of information on our website, seattle.score.org, templates, information, newsletters, blogs, and so it's a great resource for you to leverage. My name is Dean Van Dyke. I'm a small business mentor, workshop presenter. I love doing the workshops. I love mentoring. Got that number needs to be increased a little bit. 25 years of business experience. I am a small business coach and consultant, speaker, trainer, veteran, and former adjunct professor. And so I've been engaged in this with SCORE for at least 3 years, but from a business perspective, I've worked with nonprofits in the corporate sector, Fortune 250, as well as small businesses down to 3 million and below, actually. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is the good and the bad reasons to start a business. Do you have what it takes? What do you need to know to start a small business? And I've got a website coming up here shortly that will provide you with those resources in the state of Washington on what you can do to start a business step by step. We're going to talk about 3 different phases of that planning, whether it's quick, detailed, or formal, and why you would need, which one would work the best for you depending on where you're at. And then also we're going to talk about quick planning with the Lean Canvas, getting help when starting through our workshops and mentoring. And then as questions arise, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and throw those into the chat, and so that we can answer those. And you should be able to unmute yourself as well. So if you do have a question, please don't hesitate to ask, and we don't need to wait till the end to answer those. So the website that I just referenced is business.wa.gov. And that website, which is run by the office is run by a very good friend of mine, really is designed to help link entrepreneurs and owners to the resources that exist within Washington State. For example, if you're starting a business, it has a checklist that you can follow to take you through the steps to form your business. And if you need additional assistance, for example, Washington formed a small business liaison team a few years ago as a result of an executive order by our governor. And what they did, the font is small. So quick question, are you guys seeing speaker view or the actual presentation?
Presentation.
Okay.
In like 3 slides and then a bunch of slides at the bottom. So the slide that you're focusing on is a little bit small. I was wondering if you could, just show one slide at a time.
That's much better.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Juan, for bringing that up. I appreciate that. So this website is designed to really help a business owner as well, because what the small business liaison team does is if you're having an issue or you have questions through, say, the Department of Commerce, and you're not getting those questions answered, you can actually reach out to the small business liaison team through this website, and they will advocate for you with whichever agency or department that you're trying to engage with in the state of Washington. So it's a wonderful resource, business.wa.gov. And I highly recommend, if you're in the state of Washington, to use and leverage this website. So where can we learn more about entrepreneurship? So entrepreneurship is really, it's a constant learning. It's a journey that you're constantly learning. And one of the things I talk to folks about is that reading is critical to continuously learn the different things that are going on. For example, the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, that's not about working 4 hours a week. What it's about is really trying to work and be as productive as you can to ultimately get there. The Business Model Generation is a book that really helps you understand which business model is going to work for me. And so the resources, and you should get this in a separate handout, but the books, podcasts, and from a podcast perspective, Automobile University, at least here in the Seattle area, if you're commuting anywhere to work or whatever, it's usually a 45-minute minimum one way. And so Automobile University is what I'd say is to find podcasts that can help you grow and learn. And there's actually, in some of the readings that I've done, I've read that Zig Ziglar, who's no longer with us, but was a very famous and growth specialist, that people would actually learn a new language or even get a university degree just by listening to things in their car. And so I don't claim Automobile University, that's something I learned from Zig, but it's a resource that you can leverage to learn as much information as you can. And these are some of those podcasts that I think are very good. Entrepreneurs on Fire, Smart Passive Income. I listened to Pat Flynn today, and the Gary Vee. I will warn you about Gary Vee. He can be very colorful in his language. So if that's something that you don't want to listen to, then I would probably say don't listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. But then, there's resources out there to help you research different aspects. I was on a call today, and so one of the things that I do with my business is I telemarket. And I was asked, well, where do you buy your list from? And I said, well, I don't buy my list. And they're like, oh, really? And I said, well, Reference USA, you can find over 15 million verified businesses within the United States. I think Canada might be included in that as well. And you get all the information you need, no email address, but you at least get a phone number, as well as who owns the business size as far as employees, revenue, and you can build your own call list just using that. And you can base it on what industry you're targeting and things like that. And so the reason I put the library in here is because for the cost of an email address, your name, potentially your address, there is just a wealth of information that you can get from the library online databases. The Business Plans Handbook is the best. It has examples of business plans from many different industries. And so it's just one of the best resources out there that you can leverage. And I'm going to mute everybody a minute.
I think Julia's on the phone.
Okay. All right. So the library is a resource that is absolutely something that I would highly recommend that you use and leverage. And in Seattle, there's a business library that Jay Lyman is the librarian of. And if you have market research or some type of research related to business, he is the go-to person. And he actually has webinars to where you can leverage those webinars, and he will walk you through how to do that type of research. So what are some good and bad reasons to start a business? If you'd like, throw some of those into the chat.
Wait. I'm just a question. With the podcasts in the previous slide, are you going to give us links to those podcasts?
You can, so we'll give you the list, but you can Google it and it will pop right up. I guarantee all these podcasts are going to show up on the first page of Google.
Okay, great, because I've never heard of them. So, all right.
No problem. All right, so in the chat, or just throw it out, what are some go ahead and unmute yourself, but what are some good and bad reasons to start a business?
just develop additional streams of revenue.
To do what you really like to do instead of what you have to do.
Okay. Anyone else? So this one comes up frequently. I hate my job or my boss. As far as this goes, I would say that this is probably not a great reason to start a business, because you're focused on potentially the wrong thing. And so that's why when I hear this, I really caution people before making that leap. There are some things with the next one that there has been many different stories of people who have started a business as a result of being laid off. Pat Flynn, who's of the Spark Passive Income, was actually laid off from his job, which now ultimately led him to his business is just, it's booming. I mean, it's phenomenal business, and it's he's doing very well, but it was a result of him being laid off that he took that leap. A friend wants to start a business. So a friend or family that wants to start a business, that you really have to understand that, is that something you want to do? Because there's different things that you could do, but this is where it really comes down to, that friendship that wants you to start a business with them. You really need to understand what the business is about, what the plan is, and really dig into it. I want an easy job or want to work less. Well, if you're I'm gonna just tell you now, bad news is if you want to become your own boss, owning a small business, it's not an easy job. You're probably not gonna work less. And so it's not a 9 to 5. It definitely is something that you're gonna do. But the challenge is, and I think Julia mentioned it earlier, is if it's something that you love to do and you're passionate about it, you're not going to look at the number of hours that you're actually working, because it's not going to feel like work. I want to save on taxes. Unfortunately, here's another one that I have to break the bad news. You're not going to save on taxes. Depending on how you're structured, you may actually have to pay more in taxes. And so that's something that a lot of folks, I'm working with a client that had a banner year last year, unfortunately forgot about the taxes. And that banner year went from, and they didn't start working with me until after 2019 was over, but that banner year went from being a banner year to like, oh my gosh, we owe a lot of taxes. And so working with the bookkeeper, working with me, we've got them on a track now to where that's not going to happen for 2020, because their business is still booming. It's just now they're in a better place. They have a revenue and profit budget in place, and they understand what they're going to have to pay on taxes in 2021. My job is boring. Probably another one that I wouldn't recommend pursuing entrepreneurship with. That's just, it's just not something that, if your job is boring, find something that really gets you excited and will get you up in the morning. Excuse me, because if your job is boring, it's not something you probably should be doing. So here's some reasons that, I want to work for myself. A lot of people, the corporate aspect of working for somebody else, they realize that all you're doing, sure, you're getting a salary, you may be getting some stock options, you may be getting other benefits, but at the end of the day, you're only making that corporation more money. And so that's part of the reason why folks want to work for themselves. I want to create, fix, and do something with my time. A fellow veteran that I was in a cohort with had a great idea about how to create renewable energy through the use of small mini wind vanes. And it was very intriguing and interesting idea because of the many different places you could put these mini wind vanes. And so that's what he's often pursuing. I'm passionate about my product or service. And that's another thing that you need to be passionate about it. But as you're passionate about it, you also need to be realistic about it too. And so we're going to talk about, what does it take to start? Are you persistent? I love the quote by Edison: genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. My son, who played baseball for many, many years, I coached him to basically say that baseball is 90% mental and 10% physical. And it really is. Because if you look at Major League Baseball, if you look at college baseball, or even if you've got a child in baseball or softball, a lot of it is mental. Because if you're walking up to the plate and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to strike out again, more than likely that's going to happen. And so with Edison, I think he failed well over 9,000 times before he found the light bulb. So that's something that you have to think about. And as you fail, you fail forward, you constantly learn and you understand and you learn from that. Are you a risk taker? So risk is something as a business owner that you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to accept. When the pandemic hit, I knew some businesses that were they were booming. The unfortunate thing is they didn't have a rainy day plan. And that rainy day plan could have kept them viable through this situation, through this pandemic that we're going through today. And when I'm working with my clients, one of the things I'm asking them is, okay, how much do you have in savings? How much do you have banked to support payroll? How much do you have for taxes? And making sure all those bases are covered so that if something happens again, they can withstand the storm. Are you disciplined? Your work ethic is really important when it comes to owning a business and launching a business. If you're disciplined and you do the things that you need to do day in and day out, you're going to be successful. Would you have to pivot sometimes? Potentially. It's like on my whiteboard, I've got a time budget or a diary, a time diary. And so if I'm not doing the things that I've got planned during that, then I reset myself and I go back to make sure that I'm doing the things I need to do to move my business forward. Now, my dad would have loved this quote: opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And the reason I say he loved this quote is that he was raised on a farm, and when he was being raised, we didn't have the wonderful equipment that we've got today. He was working with horse-drawn stuff, and so that's one of the things that when people see how much work it is, sometimes they bail, and that's okay. They figure they tested the waters, they didn't like it, they got out. Are you competitive? Do you want to succeed? That's another aspect that you need to think about. Am I willing to put in the work to make sure that this is successful? Because that's what you really need to do. Competition makes you serve your customer better, and that makes your business better. I like to think, and I do think, that co-opetition makes us all better. There's enough in this world for all of us to be successful. And again, maybe we have to pivot our business. I'll give you an example, a restaurant business, a barbecue in Texas. They were doing phenomenally, in dining, and primarily it was in dining. When the pandemic hit and they had to pivot to takeouts and they had to pivot to delivery, their business actually went through the roof because they were willing to make that pivot. They started offering, if you have a family of 4, here's a meal deal. You have a family of 6, here's a meal deal. They actually had to hire people because they had so much business. And one of the things that I find in working with business owners is can you listen? Are you humble enough to take the feedback that's being given to you by a mentor? And if you struggle with that, then that's going to be a challenge because you're not going to be willing to ask for help. And that's where, as a business owner, there are so many resources available to all of us to help support our business and grow as a business today, that you need to be willing to ask for help. Listening makes you a better manager as well as owner. Makes your product or services better. It makes your business better. For example, this morning, I had to call. I needed to return something. I got the first customer service agent on the phone. The call got dropped. And it could have been dropped, or it could have been they disconnected it. That's happened to me more than once with another service provider. And the only reason I stay with that service provider is there is no other alternative that I can use. However, this morning, the next agent I talked to apologized for the call drop and explained that they're all working from home. The calls do drop as a result of working from home and not having the type of stable internet connection that most of them had when they worked in the office. So let's talk about new business here. So why do businesses fail? And I'm talking pre-pandemic. The pandemic is something that I term as a special cause. We've never been through that. And, really, about 50% will fail within 5 years. A lot of them lack that cushion. And like I was saying before, is when I'm working with my clients, I'm asking them, how are you doing? We follow a kind of what I call a bucketized system, to where, do you have money in the bucket for operations to cover operations? What about payroll? What about taxes? And as long as they have money to cover those for the projected expenses, they should be good. A poor marketing strategy, lack of product uniqueness, not able to connect to customers. So the one thing, when you think about Uber, they were unique from a product offering perspective, but they were also able to connect to customers. I don't know how many of us on the call have actually had to hail a cab. I've had to hail a cab in New York, and I don't know how many cabs drove by, but it was it was not a good customer experience. Uber flipped that model and said, well, we're going to give you an app on your phone. You're going to know which car it is because we're going to give you the license plate. You're going to see the driver's picture, and you're going to know who is picking you up, and you're going to know how much it cost. That's why Uber and Lyft have been so successful. A lot of companies have a poor revenue and cost model. Their costs exceed what the revenue is, and that's typical for a startup. However, you need to get that under control and have a plan to manage that. Poor management and operational control. I was talking with a business owner late last week. He's got 11 employees and he's trying to manage them all. And I said, well, your span of control is too big. You need help. And so the thing is you need to plan the business, plan the work, and work the plan, because that is what's going to make you successful. And when in the lean canvas, which we're going to talk about tonight, is really, it helps you to test those ideas before you spend a lot of money and find out, no, that's not going to work. And so it's really helping you to manage that risk when you're starting a business, because a goal without a plan is just a wish. Last week, I was going through my quarterly goals for Q4 because I'm on an annual basis. And I have them mapped out. I know what I need to do. I know what my goals are. And that's what I'm working towards. And every day I'm working towards those goals. So what do you need to know? Here's a great quote. Entrepreneurship is not a leap of faith. It's really project management and hundreds of very small decisions. And we have a handout that if you don't already have it, you will receive it. But it's our small business essentials task list. How do you start that business? How do you create that marketing plan? What does your financial plan look like? And when we look at the different phases, quick planning, create your lean canvas, detailed planning through the task list, and then formal planning with the formal business plan, and then launch your business. Now, for some businesses, you don't need to do all of this. And we'll talk about that, but if you're not seeking funding from an investor, which would include family, because family is typically the first ones we ask to invest in our company, from the bank, you might be able to launch your business just with Lean Canvas. It just depends on what your business is. And so what the Lean Canvas does is it really helps you to understand what is my problem that I'm trying to solve? Which customers am I trying to target? What's my unique value proposition? What's going to set me apart from the competition so that we have that ability to be successful? Prime example, when Domino's launched many, many years ago, it was a guaranteed hot, fresh pizza in 30 minutes or less. The customers they went after were college students. And I know when I was in college, which was a few years ago, that was one of the things that, could I get a hot, fresh pizza in 30 minutes or less? Probably not. But when they launched, they went after the customers who wanted that unique value. Uber did the same thing. They went after people who wanted a car, knew how much it was going to cost, how much time was it going to take for that car to get there, and that's how they've been successful. So when you think about planning your business, you're going to create that business structure, whether it's a limited liability corporation, an S Corp, C Corp, partnership, LLP, limited liability partnership. You're going to need to understand which business entity makes sense for your business. My business is an LLC. You will then need to choose, your state business license application, your local business. And the local business license application is really, where are you doing business in? For example, I do business in the city of Issaquah. That's where I'm incorporated. And that's where my tax structure is. When I have work in other cities, for example, I've done some work with municipalities. I had to buy a business license there as a result of doing work with those municipalities. Business insurance is another one. If you're seeking funding and you've never been in business before, they will, whether it's, primarily through either small business administration loans or a bank, which administers those loans, they're going to look at your personal FICO score and your credit record. The reason they do that is because you have no other history. They're going to look at your tax returns, more than likely the last 3 to 5. The other thing that I know most startups struggle with is startup cost. We underestimate what that's going to be. And so as you're going through this planning process, it is easy to get overwhelmed, don't get me wrong, but keep in mind what you're trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, just keep making that progress over perfection so that you keep moving forward. From a marketing perspective, who's your target market? Domino's went after the college students. Their product or service was, again, hot, fresh pizza in 30 minutes or less. What's your pricing going to be? Packaging, distribution of your products? Are you going to have to rely on others to package it and distribute your product? And a key example there is Amazon. Amazon started their own airline, started their own delivery services because they weren't getting the results they wanted via Amazon or via FedEx and UPS and DHL. What is your message? Is it going to resonate? Is your value proposition, benefits, and features going to solve that problem that your customer has. And a good example of this is if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you're looking for a drill, you're not looking for the drill. You need to drill a hole, so therefore you need to go find a product that will support the ultimate goal of you getting that hole drilled. That's what your end goal is. And then if your business needs to be online, create that plan for getting online. A lot of businesses today create this beautiful website and don't need it. What they may need is a landing page. A prime example of this, I was talking with a commercial cleaner, and their target market were new business offices or high rise that you see in Bellevue and Seattle. And she had this wonderful website that she paid thousands of dollars every year to maintain. And I asked her one question: how do you typically get your leads? Well, I go door to door. When I see a new office building going up, I walk in and I start talking to them. And I said, so why do you have so much money invested in a beautiful looking website that costs you thousands of dollars a year when your primary method of getting new customers is to walk through the door, introduce yourself, and say, this is what I do? So think about as lean as you can be when you're launching your business. A detailed financial plan. What's your startup cost? What do you project your sales are going to be? I over-projected my sales for the first year. I said, oh, I'm going to do this number in sales. And you know what? I failed miserably. And I'm willing to admit that because I was overconfident. I didn't have an optimistic, pessimistic plan that would really help me work through that. The cash flow, and then creating a plan for your accounting and tax payments. A business owner should have 4 people in their court: a business coach or mentor, an attorney, an accountant, and a financial advisor. There should be 4 pillars supporting your business. Now, maybe you don't need the attorney all the time, but a bookkeeper that I work with reached out the other day and said, do you know a good HR attorney? And I said, well, absolutely I do. Having worked in the legal field for a few years, I referred them to that HR attorney, and they're off and running. You don't always need to keep an attorney on retainer, but you should have a good network of folks that you can reach out to and say, who do you recommend? Formal planning, creating that formal business plan. We've got a great template on seattle.score.org that would help you do this. I'm mentoring some SCORE mentees right now that are working through their business plan. Business Plans Handbook via the KCLS or Seattle Public Library is another great resource. And as I said before, you don't always need a formal business plan to launch your business. I was in a cohort a few years ago, and a gentleman by the name of John Seacrest came in and spoke to us. And he said, if you have an idea, go test it. For example, he said, walk down the street with your phone, find out which businesses don't have a Google page. Walk in, ask them, are you willing to pay me to build your Google page? If they're willing to transact with you and let you build their Google page and then pay you, that's a potential business. Another example he gave us was a college student at the University of Washington during the summer went down the coast of Washington to the businesses and said, hey, would you let me build your website for, I think it was like $400. Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. For those that said no, he went back to them and changed his pitch and said, would you let me build your website for $1 a day? He did so much business that it financed his college education. He sold that business for a few $1 million after he left college. So just that slight tweak in your message can make all the difference. So how much planning do you need? So I launched our business with a lean canvas. I've since done more detailed planning, formal business plan, but I launched it with a lean canvas. I tested the idea, and that's what you can do with a lean canvas. If you need a formal business plan, you're more than likely putting a substantial amount of money at risk, or you need significant funding to start, of which we will have we'll have a finance seminar coming up. I think it's the last one, October 27th. Requesting external financing. You need a physical site. If you're a brick and mortar business and you need a site, you're going to want to look at your business plan. Potentially a complex product so that you can explain all that through your formal business plan. So we're going to pause a bit, and I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat.
I had a question.
Sure.
Okay, he said he'd do a website for $1 a day.
$365, yes.
Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense.
So he went back, so it was $400 for one website, or he would build it for him for $1 a day, which equated to $365. So he was building the same website, but his marketing message changed to where he said it'll cost you $1 a day to do this. He still charged him $365, but his message changed.
But he took a year to build it? I mean, that's what.
Oh, no. They paid him $365 for that website for the year.
Oh.
He built it, and they paid him.
Oh, okay, now I'm getting it. It went over my head. Okay. $1 a day for a year. Alrighty.
I know in Kirkland, there used to be a fellow who ran the Kirkland Downtown Association, Dick Bazell, and he had a similar line. I mean, he was always trying to get Kirkland businesses to sign up, and his pitch was, hey, for $1 a day, you get all this. And it wasn't, it didn't take him a year to sign up. It was just like the example for the website guy. It was just a way to kind of make a more palatable way of investing the same amount of money if you thought about it over a longer horizon.
Yeah, they're paying the same amount. It's just when I hear something's going to cost me $1 a day, I'm like, oh, that seems reasonable. Or maybe it's a latte a day. It just seems more reasonable. And you'll see that in marketing messages today. I know I use it for my online learning system. And it's just a way to bring people to the table to entertain the idea of transacting with you.
I know municipalities, who are probably the least sophisticated marketers on the planet, will often do that. They'll say, okay, the average tax bill for this levy for additional police and fire is $482. And then they break it down into what Dean just said, something more manageable in someone's mind that costs way less on a daily basis or a weekly basis. It's just kind of a way to make a big number less scary.
I don't want to jump into politics, but that is exactly how they sell tax increases. It's exactly how they sell it. It's only going to cost you 0.001, but we're going to be paying 10.1% overall. That's exactly how they sell tax increases. All right, so let's jump into the quick planning. The lean canvas, and there's varying lean canvases, business canvases that are out there. It's really just a quick planning technique. It really helps you to quickly test, verify, and modify your idea. And it really helps you to get organized. When I work with my clients, what I recommend they do is they get a 3x5 whiteboard or a 4x6 whiteboard, and they segment it into these areas. And then you get the small sticky notes, and you actually put the small sticky notes into the various buckets. And a book that I highly recommend that's in the list is The Lean Startup. YouTube has a plethora of videos as well, but The Lean Startup will help you walk through this canvas. All right, so now we're going to start the video, and Duncan, I think I actually enabled video or sound, so we should be good.
In the previous video, we met Joe. He's a
Sounds
vegan,
great.
so he doesn't eat meat, milk products, or anything that comes from animals. He also works at Pasila, and he has noticed that the only way for a vegan to have lunch in that area is to prepare his own lunchbox, which usually is a drag. So he had an idea. What if there was a lunch restaurant serving vegan food in Pasila? Is there demand? Would people come? Can he make money? Let's take a look what his idea would look like as a lean canvas. What we have here is a blank lean canvas. Let's start by giving this idea a name, Vegan Restaurant in Pasila. Next we can go ahead and specify who the customers would be. Vegans naturally, but they also would probably need to live or work in Pasila. And to further narrow down the first customer spec, it's easiest for Joe to first figure out if other people like him share his problem. This is a good idea since keeping the first customer definition narrow dramatically helps the next steps, and you can always broaden the audience once there's traction. So maybe 25, 35 years old and with reasonably high income. Done. Next up, the problem. Joe already knows that there are no restaurants in Pasila serving vegan food, and at least for himself, it's really annoying to prepare your own lunch every day. What could be the ingredients of the solution? Joe thinks that his customers would appreciate good quality food, and also the restaurant would obviously have to be nearby the Pasila office complexes. And also the service should be quick since usually people have tight schedules during the workdays. The unique value proposition should boil down how you're different from everybody else and what you're worth paying attention to. In this case, it's quite easy to be the best when you're the only one. And for the unfair advantage, Joe's brother happens to be a chef and a vegan himself. Plus he's also interested in opening his own restaurant. Making vegan food taste exquisite is no simple task, so it's definitely hard to copy. Channels. How can Joe reach the 25 to 35-year-old vegans who work in Pasila? Outdoor ads near workplaces, obviously. Where else are vegans using their time? Vegaanifoorumi for one, Facebook groups. Facebook even lets you target advertisements by age, interest, location, and so on. Joe also thinks that word of mouth has a crucial role in this customer segment. As metrics, it's good to have numbers that are actionable and react quickly. Joe chooses metrics that tell him if his solution box is working. For example, number of returning customers really tell him if people are finding value in his solution. Other metrics that he chooses are quality of food and average turnaround time. At this stage, costs and revenue are best to be left really rough, since all of this is just best guesses. One good tactic is to estimate the customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value per one customer. So how much would it cost to get one customer through the door, and how much would they be bringing money in over the entire customership? Joe's estimate is that it would take 19 euros on average to get one customer, and one customer would visit 30 times on average and pay 12 euros for each lunch. That adds up as 19x as the LTV CAC multiplier, which is in a good territory. It's good to highlight that all of this is just an educated best guess at this stage. To validate whether the canvas has anything to do with reality, Joe will make a series of MVP tests to turn those yellow traffic lights either green or red. In the next video, we will take a look at those MVPs and record our learnings using innovation accounting. In the previous
All right, so we're not going to jump into so MVP is a minimum viable product, and absolutely that video is going to jump into that as well as some of the accounting methods that's used with it, but we're not, for the foundations class, we're not going to jump into that tonight. So why is it only one page? The thing is it's really early thinking. It's just a high level draft plan, and it's lean because it's brief. And as Luke always, or as Yoda always said, trust the force, Luke. Well, you need to trust the canvas, because as you build out your canvas, you're going to then develop how I'm going to test my product or my service idea that I have. So the two key things is really what you're trying to solve for is the problem and the solution. So in the example of Uber, customers didn't want to hail a taxi. They wanted to know how much it was going to cost before they transacted. They wanted to know who it was. What type of car is it? And so Uber really solved that problem. Lyft did as well in that. Amazon, another prime example, people wanted things quickly, cost effectively, and Amazon was able to meet that. Now, there are some things that, you know, there's a lot of places today that didn't innovate and adapt to the customer problems that we presented. And I won't go into the list because it's fairly long, but they blamed Amazon, the Amazon effect. Well, that's not true, because if you were a business owner and you failed to innovate based on what your customers want to solve that problem, that's on you, the business owner. And so really, to get to the bottom of what that problem is, there's a technique called the 5 whys. And a 4 and 5-year-old has the 5 whys down to a science. They continually ask why until they get the answer that they're seeking. And you as a business owner can do the exact same thing, because you need to understand, why would someone transact with you for that to solve their problem? And that's where that unique value proposition or a market dominating position is key, because there's people out there that are offering alternatives to solve the problem. And that's where you as a business owner need to stay engaged with those customers, because then what you're going to do is provide them with the solution. What's the factual description of your product or service? What are you trying to solve? What are those features that you're going to be able to do and provide with your product or service? The unique value proposition, it's really simple, clear, compelling message that states why you're buying that uniqueness from that business owner. Fast, fresh, hot pizza in 30 minutes or less. That's what you're trying, that's what's getting you to buy that pizza. And it's solving your customer's problem because they're not used to getting a hot, fresh pizza. And it's something that when you think about, you're developing an unfair advantage. It can't be easily copied or bought. Walmart is currently playing catch up to Amazon. And there are others out there that are doing the same thing. But that market dominating position is something that it really helps to show that customer what the perceived benefit is. When I'm at a networking event, when we could do those, and I was meeting someone for the first time and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, anything it takes." And then when they chuckle, I say, "Well, what I do is I find business owners anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 in untapped revenue in 45 minutes or less." Now, depending on the size of the business, they're going to go, "Oh," and more than likely going to want to talk more after that networking event. So when you have that market dominating position, it's easy for people to understand why they should do business with you, or at least explore it further. Your segments and channels. Who are your target customers? Who's your early adopters? You really need to find out who your early adopters are, because once you get your early adopters, they become your mouthpiece. They're the ones that provide you with referrals. They're the ones that provide you with testimonials. They are the ones who get your next batch of customers through the door. And understanding where your target customer is at is key. Prime example, my youngest son, if you were to target him on Facebook, you're not going to find him. If you were to target him on Pinterest, you're not going to find him. If you target him on Instagram, Twitter, and I think you can advertise now on Snapchat, you're going to find him. But if you go to Facebook and your customers are not on Facebook, you're not going to be successful. No one's going to know about you. And so when you think about the channels, how are you going to communicate with your customers? It could be through a landing page. It could be through a website. It could be, believe it or not, it could be through direct mail. I use direct mail in my business. If I want to get my foot in the door, I send a business owner a squishy foot. It's like a stress ball, but in the shape of a foot with a letter that outlines how I want to get my foot in the door. That's how I communicate to some of my prospects. And there's many other ways that you can be unique to do that. Metrics. So metrics are an important part of your business because you need to understand what's my revenue. Cash flow is important. Cash is king. There are many, many businesses through this pandemic that had great cash flow and therefore able to weather the storm that we're in. There's other businesses that have great revenue, but then can't figure out why they can't make payroll. How are you turning your inventory over? Inventory on a shelf is waste. If inventory is collecting dust on a shelf, it's waste. Prime example, I used to work for a major computer manufacturer. When I took over a certain portion of the business, we had over $35 million worth of inventory sitting on shelves. And when I ran the numbers, I think it was well over 4 to 6 weeks worth of inventory. We didn't need that. But the buyers kept making sure that that's how much we had because they never wanted to shut down production. And so I worked with them and manufacturing to implement a just-in-time inventory. Now, when I started to do this, I got pulled into the senior VP's office in manufacturing and said, don't you ever shut down my manufacturing plants. I said, Roger that. The unfortunate thing is I didn't know there was a blizzard coming. So I couldn't be held responsible for shutting down manufacturing. But inventory turns are important, especially if you've got inventory. And there's other key measures that you need to look at, but make sure you're looking at the vital few. And if you're measuring something and not using that, don't waste your time. I had a client ask me the other day, well, should I measure this? I said, well, what's your end goal with it? Well, I just want to measure it. I said, no, don't waste your time. Costs. When you look at the cost to acquire customers, a new customer, it is expensive. But keeping current customers is more cost effective. But from a cost structure, when you're starting up, you're going to need to understand, what is it going to take? Do I need a building? Do I need site improvements? Do I need equipment? Inventory, opening costs. If you have a staff, you've got salaries. And if you need to train that staff before you open, you're paying for that training because you're not going to train them for free. And if you're doing product manufacturing and someone else is doing it for you, make sure you understand those different costs. Revenue streams. When you look at the model that you're going to use, what are you going to charge for your product or service? If you charge too low, people may not see it as a benefit. If you charge too high and your target customer can't afford it, that's not going to help either. But the one thing I always impress upon folks is don't try to compete on price. Walmart's the only one that I'm aware of that can compete on price effectively because they do it in volume. If you're a small business owner, do not compete on price. That's a race to the bottom that you're not going to win. What's your gross margin? Understanding what the gross margin is that you're achieving, and it may vary based on the industry. Some industries are 10%. Some are 40 to 50%. But what's your gross margin?
Okay.
And so you've got, oh, go ahead.
Well, how do you figure that out? I mean, I don't get that.
It's
I mean,
basically revenue minus cost of goods sold. That's your gross margin.
but what if you haven't started yet? How do you figure that out?
That's where you use industry benchmarks to understand where you should be. So for example, Dun & Bradstreet, one of the databases that was on the list, the ratios, you can find using that D&B database what the ratio should be. One of my clients that I work with is 10%. Because the margins are so small, you benchmark that against someone in the same industry. Another client that I work with, their margins run anywhere from 40 to 50%. And it's just, you need to understand that D&B ratio can help you understand if you're starting a restaurant, your margins are probably going to be, they're not going to be anywhere near 40 to 50%, but the industry has margins that most restaurants will achieve depending on how well they're run. So it's through your research that you do in setting up your business that you'll find where it should be. And that's where a score mentor can help you as well. Did that answer the question?
Kind of. I mean,
How else?
I mean, I don't have a complex business like that, so I don't.
Well, in a service-based business, if like mine, I don't have cost of goods sold. So it's going to be whatever my expenses are minus, that's my gross margin. I don't have cost of goods sold. So it could vary. If you're a product-based business, that's where your cost of goods sold is going to come into play.
I'm still lost, but go on. Just
Julia, aren't you an author? Are you selling publications or articles? What's your business?
I mean, I have a ton of income streams. I do crafts. I sell. I help. Yeah, right. I write books. I do articles. The reason I'm joining up with this is I'm trying to start something whereby I want to help people who are just starting up their businesses. I want to, especially people for whom English is a second language, and there's a ton of them on the East Side. They don't know how to really put together a website in decent English, and I want to be that person to do the copy editing. So that's the kind of business you can't really, I mean, what you're talking, all the stuff you're talking about, like, heck if I know. I mean, it's.
So was it Julia?
I'm Julia.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your craft business. So you build crafts and you sell them, correct?
Right.
So your cost of goods sold is your cost of goods sold is the products or the raw materials that you're purchasing to build the crafts.
Right.
That's your cost of goods sold. So whatever crafts you're making or doing, that's your cost of goods sold. Now what you're talking about is selling a service. So you're more than likely not going to have cost of goods sold. And your gross margins is more likely going to be very high because you don't have things that are going to impact that. And it's like my business. As a coach and consultant, my cost of goods sold is minimal because it's basically my revenue minus expenses, which indicates my gross margin, but it's also my net income as well. So in your business, you may not, to be able to understand what that is, you may want to look at, what does it take to build, and provide the type of grammar that you're talking about. You may want to talk to folks that are in marketing that build websites and write copy, and that may help you understand how to price what you're trying to do.
I think you're definitely in the service-based business, as Dean suggested. I mean, I see you as an hourly consultant. You're going to put yourself out there to help ESL types on the east side work with their native tongue and get it in a presentable way to put it on a website. You're going to charge them X bucks an hour. I mean, I have a friend who's a website designer, and if he could do what you do, he'd probably raise his website design fee from $90 an hour, which I think is quite cheap, to $125, because he could do the copy editing for numerous languages as well. So I think there's all kinds of benchmarks. If you root around a little bit, and with your journalism background, I know you could do this. Just find, well, what does a copy editor at the New York Times make? And what does an independent copy editor make? And what are all these people that are certified ESL people in the public school system? I mean, there's enough things that are proxies for what you're honing in on that I think you could probably do this pretty readily. And
Oh,
I
no.
see you as an hourly consultant, probably $100 an hour or north is what I would
Right,
suggest.
right. Oh, yeah. Now that I pretty much figured out. Like in the Seattle area, $100 is just kind of standard.
That's just to have a cup of coffee, absolutely.
Right, right. Yeah, and yeah, web designer. I'd heard. Yeah, web designers don't go lower than 90 an hour. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I know what I would charge. It's just finding finding the customers. And like you said,
Well, that's entirely different. I mean, you solved your hourly rate, I think, in the last minute or two.
right.
That's not your problem. Your problem is what every business faces, which is a funnel of qualified customers. So that's where you should put your horsepower and focus, which, you know, you can come back for the marketing session to learn a few more things, but Dean's going to help us fill up the funnel here in the next little bit. I know that.
Well, actually, we're coming to the end. I'm about ready to land the plane, but the marketing one that's coming up is going to be, Julia, if you can join that one, I would highly recommend it. It's another SCORE mentor out of Houston and a highly respected marketer. And Suzette's got a great presentation, and I'd highly recommend that you come back for that one.
No, but what you're doing, this Canva thing is really, really good. Is there some kind of, I'm just trying to think, just Google Lean Canvas, and that's where we'll find this.
Well, I think Duncan's going to send out the documents that you've seen tonight. You're going to get a Lean
I've already
Canvas.
done that. All the attendees should have all that already.
Okay. So you've got a Lean Canvas. The link to the videos you should be able to get to that as well. And you can go to YouTube and Google Lean Canvas, and you're going to get a ton of videos about Lean Canvas. There are ones that go into much more depth. I'm limited in the amount of time that I could do tonight, but so 3 to 4 minutes is what I'm trying to keep it to. But yeah, and then there's, and this is, again, a very high level overview of how to start your business with Lean Canvas. We do have a workshop, which let me jump to there, that you can create a quick business plan in 3 hours. Duncan works with another mentor to launch some of these. They probably won't be back until next spring?
They probably won't be in Startup 425 sponsored format until summer of next year. But full disclosure, these are basically just a rebranding set of workshops. They're entirely SCORE built, and they're excellent, and they're being offered all the time. So I have no problem, with you folks just going to the SCORE website on this link, and I'm on their newsletter, and I get good stuff literally every 3 or 4 days. I get the entire roster of things that they're putting together. Now, unlike Startup 425, these are paid. They're quite nominal. They're $50 a pop, but they're not free. So, just know that. But I would suggest you jump on this website and just peruse the upcoming workshops. And the one that talks about, a more detailed business plan, it definitely will take the Lean Canvas in a little bit more depth. But what Dean, I think, has done a nice job of this evening is sort of planting the seed and showing, pretty much how straightforward it is. And I used to think it was too straightforward. I'm used to the old school, if a business plan isn't 30 to 50 pages, it's not worth anything. I used to teach this at every community college. I've come around pretty dramatically to this one page piece of paper. And maybe it's because I too am getting a short attention span along with everyone else in the world with Zoom fatigue and all that. But it really asks the right questions and it forces you to be really succinct and put it all on one page. Now, each of those boxes can be expanded, at whatever length you want, but it allows you to really crystallize your thinking. And as Dean suggests, there's no shortage of additional resources on the web that could tell you all kinds of stuff about how to use this tool. But probably the most efficient way, and it's very doable even in COVID land, is to get a SCORE mentor. I mean, they're no charge. That's their stock and trade. Dean's been a SCORE mentor for a long time. He has all kinds of buddies who do the same. You can hook up with a SCORE mentor virtually and get them to square one and say, you know what, I'm going to launch an ESL copy editing business out of my home and I need some assistance, and I've gotten a good start for Dean on the lean canvas, but I want to stay with you for the next several weeks to hammer it out. And that's absolutely what they do. They can take a very deep dive.
And I'm looking, I am looking at all the attachments. There's nothing about finding a mentor, and that was my other question. Where do we find a SCORE mentor?
So this website right here, seattle.score.org.
Okay.
And then you can find a mentor via there or via that, using that.
There's lists of people.
So you can search by specialty, and you can, like, if you want help with business plan or if you want help with marketing, and you can search for folks that have the specialties that you're looking for, or you can search. You can look through the list of people as well. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Okay, great, thank you.
And so with that,
Hi there, and hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I needed to know about that, especially for the mentor. Are we going to prepare like a kind of fees for that, or the service will be free?
So the SCORE mentor, that is free. You can get a mentor through SCORE for free. If you want to take the fee-based classes, which are these right here, these are fee-based. And they're $50 a session. So if you took all 4 of these, it'd be $200.
Thank you.
And they go into much more depth than what we did tonight. So with that, if there's no other questions, I appreciate everyone who participated and attended. Duncan, thank you for your assistance.
Sure. And just a reminder, I'm going to send out the invitation to take the survey. And if you would do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And I've also put the link for the additional series. There's 5 more to come. And I think a lot of sign up for them already, which is great. But there's just another reminder there. You can jump on the Startup 425 website and check out the upcoming ones and sign up for any ones that have interest that you haven't signed up for. And Rose, I'm sorry I missed your attempts to connect with me earlier. I'm happy to talk to you over the phone about your questions about Social Purpose Corporation, or if you want, I can hang on here and do it now. I think, Dina, I don't want to keep you though.
Well, here, I can make you host.
Well, let me ask Rose. Rose, do you want us to,
okay.
Do you want to stay on and talk or not?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I am. Yeah.
Okay, Rose and I are going to hang out here. We'll say goodbye to everyone else. Thanks a lot. And okay, Rose, go ahead.
Yes, because of my ideas, I need to build something that will be internationally. And the model I'm looking for, I want it to be a social enterprise. The The problem is, even the one that you refer me to, the website you give me to look, I went there. I really looked a lot. Unfortunately, the laptop I'm using right now, I'm talking with, is not a friendly tool for me to go there. It's not working good. So I will not be able to go back and forth, so I can be asking you what I was seeing there. So the first question, I'm sure maybe you are going to send me back there. It was about B corporation. So I did not understand the the difference between a B corporation and a C corporation. I don't know what are you going to tell me about.
Okay, just so I understand, when you talked to me earlier, it sounded like you wanted to know the difference between a social purpose corporation
Mm-hmm.
and a B certified corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Mm-hmm.
true? Okay.
Yeah.
A social purpose corporation is a special type of corporation that Washington State allows through the Secretary of State's office. And that allows someone to be in business for profit, but to have a portion of the profits go to a sort of better good of the community. So for example, let's say you wanted to have a business that was a hamburger stand. It was a kind of like a Dick's Drive-In hamburger space. But because it was a social purpose corporation, you were going to give 10% of your gross sales to um, the YMCA to help with after-school programs. So if it was a straight up for-profit corporation, you couldn't do that because that wouldn't be maximizing your profit. But because it's a social purpose corporation where that community betterment is actually part of your reason for being, it's written into your statement with the Secretary of State, and it's well known to anyone who buys or supplies to your business. And you, as the head of the corporation with 1,000 employees, it's all well known from day one. You can give 10% of your gross sales to YMCA after school programs. So that's kind of one example of what a social purpose corporation is. It's fairly easy to set up. I mean, it's a 5-page application through the Secretary of State's office. You know, you have to get an agent and you have to tell them what your social purpose is and all that, but it's fairly straightforward. The B certified corporation is definitely along the same lines, but it's much more involved. There's an organization called B Lab, which has a very extensive questionnaire and a certification process to become a B certified corporation, and it involves documenting to them, let's say you're that restaurant. Well, I only use grass-fed beef, and I use all my suppliers from within 50 miles, and all of my employees are on full-blown medical care, and I give everyone a free vacation to Hawaii every year. I mean, there's all kinds of requirements. So in your situation, I would say don't try to become a B certified corporation. It's really involved, and it really wouldn't get you that much more marketing mileage beyond a social purpose corporation. So I would suggest you become a social purpose corporation and go through that process. And then later, if you think it would be worthwhile, you could go through the much more involved process of becoming a B certified corporation. But I definitely start with the social purpose corporation and pursue that. What is your business idea? What is it that you're going to do to make money?
Okay, my idea, I want to help immigrants who are here trying to do business, but sometimes they have a lot of difficulties having the location or to rent something like the business location where they want to be. So it is an issue many are trying to do from their homes, but things are not working well. So I don't know with the housing enterprise or housing industry, how that will work the way you said about social purpose corporation. So how I can play that? It's going to be playing about the pricing of the rent. I don't know how I'm going to make that to happen.
Yeah, you're gonna have to think through that. So when you say you're gonna help immigrants, what are you gonna do? What are you providing medical care to them? You're providing
No,
translation? What do you do for an immigrant business?
I wanna be connecting them to, let's say someone has an idea to open a restaurant,
Okay.
but that person does not have any connection or way to rent a location or a restaurant where he can start his business. Um, like in Seattle, they don't know where to rent a place, where to open, something like that. So if I can build my business to locate those places, to have, I can have a kind of fund where I can rent myself the place and then rent to to subcontract with all those people are going to be doing the business. So
Okay.
I
Okay, that's a pretty good description. I think what you just described was a kind of a intermediary to
mhm,
assist immigrant businesses find a location to open a restaurant. So you would take it on your behalf to find the
mhm,
restaurant, talk to the landlords, negotiate the rent, visit
mhm,
the site, determine if it had the proper heating and cooling and ventilation. You're
mhm,
like a property finder.
mhm,
You're a real estate search assistant, and
mhm,
your target market is immigrants who have challenges with languages, and so that's to me a legitimate business, and I'd say one where you could make it a social purpose corporation is say you're going to charge these immigrants, let's say you charge them, you know, a flat fee of $300 to find them a suitable site to open a, you know, let's say it's an Ethiopian coffee shop. Let's say you met a client, you said, okay, I'm going to charge you $300 if I find you a proper site to open an Ethiopian coffee shop in Redmond. And you do the research, you go online, you talk to a few landlords, you find a space, you visit the space, and then you come back to the client and you say, I found a place that is perfect for you, it meets all of your requirements. For that service, you're going to pay me $300. Then the client goes off and he signs the lease with the landlord. You could then say, okay, I'm a social purpose corporation. I am going to take 10% of my sales. In this case, it would be $30, which is 10% of 300. And I'm going to donate that to the YMCA of Greater Redmond for after school kids programs. So in that regard, you'd be doing something that a straight up for-profit business would never do. They'd never take profit out of the business and give it to a social purpose organization. They'd keep it all for themselves. So the only way you get to differentiate yourself as being a social purpose corporation, which is it's a variety of a for-profit corporation, is by having that stated purpose in your charter with the Secretary of State. So that's just one example. You don't have to do anything like what I just said, but that's a way in which I could see, I see you becoming a social purpose corporation.
thank you so much for that explanation.
Does that make
And
sense?
I have also another question in a similar example.
Okay.
Okay, if for what you just said, if I take, we are just using the example. If I take that $30, which is 10% of that 300,
Yes.
I take some money to finance another project I have overseas, like in Africa. Is that one can be doable with U.S. Legal issues or something like that? That
My inclination would be most likely yes. If you were to write your social purpose corporation statement as, I will donate X% of my sales to do charitable work overseas and to help communities out of the U.S. to get a better standard of living or build a well or something that is a community betterment. To me, that sounds like it would be legitimate. Yes, I think that would be possible. Now again, that's my impression. I'm not an attorney. I can't give you a definitive, but that's my inclination is to think that sounds very legitimate to me.
Okay. So what about if I combine this kind of service with something like fundraising? Can you do something like that to say, okay, I have my own social purpose corporation, but I can also raise money or doing a kind of fundraising to raise.
I don't think so, Rose. I don't think a social purpose corporation can raise money for. It seems to me a social purpose corporation is designed to make a profit. Okay, there's a whole nother side of life which is a non-profit.
Okay.
You're not talking about. You're talking about a specific type of a for-profit corporation called a social purpose corporation. Social purpose corporation is not a nonprofit. They're a for-profit, but they're going to give a portion of their profits away to a community-minded enterprise. I don't think you could set yourself up to raise money, because then you're not selling anything. You're just taking in donations. That to me is that's like a nonprofit foundation, like the Margaret Casey Foundation or the Kirkland Chamber of Commerce has an auction and raises money. They're a nonprofit. They're a 501c6 and their foundation is a 501c3. I don't think those are the flavors you're talking about.
Okay, thank you so much. So my camera there is no way I can open. My computer is really bad.
It's okay. I can hear you fine.
Yeah, when I turn it on, for me, I cannot hear you anymore well. So that's why.
Well, my video is terrible. I look like I'm in a hostage video.
Okay, I cannot take your time too much.
No,
Thank
that's
you so
okay. I'll send you a link. I'm going to send you a link to the Secretary of State, the 5-page application for the Social Purpose Corporation. And there's a phone number on there for the Secretary of State. I called them the other day and they weren't very helpful, but you might try that phone number on the application to ask some of these questions. They might have some insight.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rose. What is your day job? When you said you're in traffic going to your job, what are you doing?
I am working with a community-based organization. I am kind of a case manager. So we go with the resources.
Which CBO is it?
Is really south in around the airport, SeaTac Airport. That's where it's located.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I missed the name. What's the name of the organization?
The name is a CIN, which means the Congolese Integration Network.
Okay, okay. Are you Congolese?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I understand. Oh, that sounds like a good position for you.
Yeah, it is. But
For the time being, you want to start your own, but this is a good day job to have some security.
exactly,
Good.
exactly.
Okay. Okay, Rose, it's nice chatting with you. I'll send you an email here in a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.